I'm Dr. Dave Janda. Welcome back to our combined series of Dave versus the MSM and Operation Freedom Briefing. I'd like to thank you for joining me today. We are available 24/7 at davejanda.com. Stop on by. Another 4 to 5 video format shows that I produce every week that you won't see on public platforms or on the radio. Why? Because of the content I go into. It's content I cannot discuss because of the choke points that are still present. Oh, they're alive and well. And still working their sinister mojo. That is why davejanda.com exists. Stop on by. Become a member of our Freedom family. Sign up for the premium service content and subscription service. It's a mere pittance, and it actually provides priceless information that puts you months and years ahead of the curve. Sign up for a month. Renews every month. You can get rid of it after a month or 2 or 3, but I don't know why. Because the information you get, you'll never get through the bought-off lamestream fake media. Today, I want to speak about the beginning of the end of the cult. Now, I've gotten a lot of blowback since Election Day. Many people say, this is it, it's over. Oh, it's all good. We can go back to our normally scheduled lives. And that would be great. But that would be a big, big mistake. I want to take you back to 1993 and 1994, where Hillary Care was working its way through the snake. Myself and a number of other people, small number of people, were involved in exposing the detrimental effects that Hillary Care would have on every American. And we eventually succeeded. Surprisingly enough for many people that kept telling us, oh, you're going to lose this, no. We won that. Now, if it was not for Senator Robert Dole in the Senate and his leadership, it would have been a lot closer. But because of him and his efforts, we pushed it back. Now, I bring that up because after we won that victory of defeating Hillary Care, a lot of people just wanted to celebrate and say, oh, it went our way. We can now go back to our regularly scheduled lives. But there was Dave who was, no, we need to start focusing immediately on pushing forward a healthcare policy agenda that makes the healthcare system more available, more affordable, more quality oriented for every American. And all I got was pushback. Dave, take the win. Relax. We got plenty of time. No, we didn't. We got plenty of time. Just enjoy the moment. Savor it. You put all this time and effort into it. You were on the front of this. You were targeted by the Clintons. You were, Dave, come on, enjoy it. Smell the roses. No. And I kept pushing and nobody kept helping. And because nobody helped and nobody advanced anything, and we had a plan that we had actually developed back in '88 at the end of the Reagan administration with C. Everett Koop, the then Surgeon General, that could easily have been implemented. Actually, even today. Still hasn't. Our healthcare world would be a drastically different place if what we did in '88, which is still applicable today, because none of the problems have changed. They've only grown bigger. But it would be drastically different. So what happened was that nothing got advanced further. Everybody was too busy celebrating the win. And what eventually came down the road, because W didn't do anything, and of course Obama came in with Obamacare. So since the election, I said this is the beginning of the end, not the end. Folks just are really mad at me about me saying that. Dave, this is a huge win. Enjoy it. This is very similar to back in the early 90s. No, don't go there. That's what they want you to do. And as I told you from the very beginning, when we look back at this time period, years down the line, we're going to say, it was tough from, to get to election day, through election day, to see those results, get those results. But what I've said is the hard part really started on election day and will go through inauguration day, and then from inauguration day for months and years beyond that. That's going to be the hard parts. Just enjoy it. No. This was November 5th, 2024, the beginning of the end, but it is not the end. And we have to continue to push the freedom movement forward. Because our adversaries, the globalist cult, the deep state, shadow government, whatever you want to call it, they're not laying back. Just look at what they did in November. Right? I mean, what was the election was not even 2 weeks old. And Biden, the people around Biden, the warmongers, gave a green light to their little World Economic Forum dictator and globalist scum, Zelensky, you get the green light to, and by the way, it took technicians from the United States to be involved in that operation, personnel, okay? Send long-range missiles into Russia. What was that? We already knew that months before that, Putin and Lavrov and Medvedev all said, there's a red line here. You don't go beyond this with long-range. And they did. Because their goal was to spark, in this time period between Election Day and Inauguration Day, a world war. To funnel more money in, so more money laundering, more beneficial support to the military-industrial complex of the world. And more chaos, because they need something to cover up for their financial takedown of the world, and they want everybody to point at, it's Russia, this Russia-Ukraine situation that led to this. No, the system was rigged to come down in its own footprint, and that visual I'd use purposefully. The financial system to come down in its own footprint, because ordnance was preloaded into that financial building to come down. Because the cult, the syndicate, had pre-positioned themselves so that when the system comes down, they'll actually get more power control and more financial resources. And they need something to point to, because they don't want you pointing at them, because they're the ones, the cult is the one who loaded the buildings full of that ordnance to bring that financial system down. And they want you to point at Russia and Ukraine. They don't want you to point at, or China, or the Middle East. They don't want you pointing the finger at them, the perpetrators of this. This is not over. But it is the beginning of the end. Let's go back to George Washington. He addressed the Continental Army before the Battle of Long Island on August 27th, 1776. Here's what he said, quote, it's pertinent today, quote, "The time is now near at hand which must probably determine whether Americans are to be free men or slaves, whether they are to have any property they can call their own, whether their houses and farms are to be pillaged and destroyed and themselves consigned to a state of wretchedness from which no human efforts will deliver them. The fate of unborn millions will now depend, under God, on the courage and conduct of this army. Our cruel and unrelenting enemy leaves us only the choice of brave resistance or the most abject submission. We have, therefore, to resolve to conquer or die." End quote. He went on to say, "I will die on my feet before I will live on my knees as a slave." It's not the end. This is the beginning of the end of this demonic, evil, satanic cult. And to walk away or to keep having a party about how happy we are on about November 5th plays right into their hands. What are their hands? It's a former federal prosecutor who wrote this. If Trump didn't win, he would have died in prison. Many of his top advisors and supporters, you and me, would have also died in prison. Most big influencers would have been banned. Guns would have been seized across the board. Amnesty for illegals would have occurred universally. The Senate filibuster would have been taken down. The Supreme Court would have been expanded and packed with Marxist judges. Elections would have been permanently rigged. And possible World War III and Civil War would have been instituted. Well, even with Trump winning. What was that, November 18th and 19th? They tried to kick off World War III, didn't they? With the launching of those long-range missiles after having been given the green light. I mean, Joe Biden was too busy trying to find his way around the Amazon rainforest, right, where he was having a meeting. All the warmonger globalist cult around him. That's what they tried. This former federal prosecutor goes on, the criminal regime occupying our country would have used the full force of the government to crush the MAGA movement and fully take over America. They know the rebellion is here, and they would have accelerated all their worst plans to destroy America and her people. But God saved America. We the people saved America. And frankly, we might have just saved the world. That's right. But remember, the game isn't over. Oh no. And remember what they wanted to turn this into. One of the people Harris paid millions of dollars to came to Detroit, just down the road from me, this Lizzo character. And as opposed to the Trump side of the equation say, let's make America great again, they said, let's make America Detroit. Make America Detroit. Well, let me take you on a walk on the wild side. Right? We don't even have to walk down 8 Mile. We can go to the Cass Corridor in Detroit. 30% of Detroit lives below the poverty line. You want to make America like Detroit? Okay. Double-digit unemployment. And Detroit has one of the highest crime rates in the country. Now, there are nice parts of Detroit. But for the most part, it's a cesspool. And that's being kind. And they want to make America Detroit. That's what would have happened if they would have won that election. But they're not done yet. After the election, they were pointing the finger about why they, quote, lost. Well, there was, people are racists and they're misogynists and they're just Neanderthals. That's the reason. Victor Davis Hanson wrote a piece regarding who the globalist cult should have blamed for their decisive defeat. Here's what he wrote. I think they needed to blame themselves for having sought to drive down the American people's throat the most radical and absurd agenda of the last 2 centuries that ruined the economy, exploded our border, made moonscapes of our big cities, make America Detroit, made moonscapes of our big cities, destroyed women's sports, set the world abroad afire, weaponized the courts and the bureaucracy, and sought to tear the country in two, end quote. Yeah, Victor's right. This is the beginning of the end. And then you have this contingent wandering around saying, well, Trump and his people around there, this is all about revenge. No, let's not confuse that with justice. Reinstitution of the rule of law. Justice. Now, if over the past 4, 8, 10, 12, 20 years, you have been violating the rights of people, impinging and impugning their constitutional rights, well then, yes, you will be held accountable. And that's a big chunk of moving this ball forward from the beginning of the end to the end of the end. The restitution of the rule of law. And President Trump went on record. He provided a video soon after the election. And it was entitled, and the vast majority of the American public never saw the video. The plot off lamestream fake media isn't going to touch it. But I want to touch on it, and I want to give you the 10 points he made. The end of the deep state. President Trump's plan to dismantle the deep state and return power to the American people. Now, what our adversaries in the cult don't realize, it's not about one person here. This is what 78 million people believe and signed up for. So the cult is mistaken if they think that trying to create another J13 event like in Butler is going to end all this. No. And frankly, they know it based on the reaction of the public after November 5th, 2024. President Trump. Here's my plan to dismantle the deep state and reclaim our democracy from Washington corruption once and for all, and corruption it is. It's not only his plan. It's 78 million people's plans in this country. And frankly, billions of people's plans around the world. First, I will immediately reissue my 2020 executive order restoring the president's authority to remove rogue bureaucrats, and I will wield that power very aggressively. Second, we will clean out all of the corrupt actors in our national security and intelligence apparatus, and there are plenty of them. The departments and agencies that have been weaponized will be completely overhauled so that faceless bureaucrats will never again be able to target and persecute conservatives, Christians, or the left's political enemies, which they're doing now at a level that nobody can believe even possible. Third, we will totally reform FISA courts, which are corrupt and that judges seemingly do not care when they are lied to in warrant applications. So many judges have seen so many applications that they know were wrong, or at least they must have known. They do nothing about it. They also lied. Fourth, to expose the hoaxes and abuses of power that have been tearing this country apart, we will establish a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Ooh, this really petrifies the cult. To declassify and publish all documents on deep state spying, censorship, and corruption, and there are plenty of them. Fifth, we will launch a major crackdown on government leakers who collude with the fake news to deliberately weave false narratives and to subvert our government and our democracy. When possible, we will press criminal charges. 6, we will make every Inspector General's office independent and physically separated from the departments they oversee, so they do not become the protectors of the deep state. 7th, I will ask Congress to establish an independent auditing system to continually monitor our intelligence agencies to ensure that they are not spying on our citizens or running disinformation campaigns against the American people, or that they are not spying on someone's campaign like they spied on my campaign. This is why you keep seeing. Remember, General McInerney, Admiral Lyons on our platform, Operation Freedom, first ones to have it on radio or TV, about the surveillance system that the Obama administration stole and utilized on President Trump, on General Flynn, and many thousands of others. It's called the hammer. That's what he's talking about here. This is why you keep seeing Elon tweet about the hammer of justice is coming. You've heard President Trump do the same since the election. The hammer. They use that term purposefully. They're giving you heads up of what's coming. I gave you that heads up back in as far back as 2017. 8th, we will continue the effort launched by the Trump administration to move parts of the sprawling federal bureaucracy to new locations outside of Washington swamp. 9th, I will work to ban federal bureaucracies from taking jobs at the companies they deal with and that they regulate, the so-called revolving door. So they deal with these companies and then they regulate these companies and then they want to take jobs from these companies. Doesn't work that way anymore. Such a public display cannot go on, and it's taking place all the time, such as with Big Pharma. Finally, I will push a constitutional amendment to impose term limits on members of Congress. This is how I will shatter the deep state and restore a government that is controlled by the people and for the people. Thank you very much. That was retweeted at the time by Elon Musk and General Flynn. Folks, we've done the celebration. November 5th is over. We are in the critical time period coming up to Inauguration Day on January 20th and the other critical time period after January 20th. Now is the time to continue to network information such as this video to your friends, families, neighbors, co-workers, and all those you know and love, because they are unaware of anything I just spoke about to this day. Let's not repeat the mistakes of what happened after Hillary Care's defeat. Now is the time to put the pedal to the metal and not back off. Our freedom, our children's freedom, future generations' freedom depend on it. Did Washington, Jefferson, Adams, Franklin, Madison, did any of them back off in 1776? No. They saw that what happened in 1776 was the beginning of the end of the cult in their time period. But they had the foresight to continue, to move ahead, to move the freedom ball down the field. That's what we must do, and will do. All 77 million of us and growing. Again, as Washington said, I will die on my feet before I will live on my knees as a slave. That's where we all are. Nobody goes on their knees. Nobody goes back to the couch. We all keep firing ahead. I thank you for joining me today. Until we are available 24/7, as I mentioned, at davejanda.com. Stop on by. Join our freedom family. You will be amazed at how much more information you get just on one visit as a member of our freedom family. Until next time, Dave Janda signing off. Dream big and dare to fail. Thanks for your time today.